In this chapter, we're going to talk about things that only a digital camera can do, or actually that the digital cameras do better in some respect or another than film cameras do. And we're going to start with shooting a panorama, which film cameras can do, but film cameras that specialize in shooting panoramas generally cost considerably more than a regular still camera. It's generally not the same camera as your still camera unless you shoot individual frames like you do with a digital camera, and then take the extra steps of processing the film and scanning the frames so that you can put them into a stitching program and stitch them in the same way that you would panoramas from a digital camera. Here's a panorama that was shot with an inexpensive digital camera and a simple piece of stitching software. It's a 180-degree panorama. Be sure you use a tripod if you're going to shoot a panorama so that the panorama isn't tilted as you swivel the camera. And for the same reason, keep the camera absolutely level. Rotate at regular intervals, usually about 20 degrees per shot. However, that varies with the focal length of your lens or the focal length that your zoom lens is set to when you take the pictures. By the way, be sure if you have a zoom lens not to change the zoom while you're rotating the camera. And be sure to rotate on the camera's focal axis. Most cameras have a marking that's halfway between the optical center of the lens and the CCD to show you where the focal axis is, and that's usually not where the tripod thread is, so you'll want to have some means of sliding it over that marking. If you don't have a marking on your camera, then take about half of the distance of your lens and the distance to the CCD, and that's a pretty good approximation of where the focal axis will be. If you don't rotate around the focal axis, then things that are close to the camera will appear to be at a different distance from the camera at 1 degree of rotation than they are from a camera at another degree of rotation. If you shoot with the camera at a vertical orientation, the frames will be closer together. There won't be so much distance, so it's easier for the software to stitch the panorama accurately, and also you get a wider angle of view from top to bottom as well as from side to side. In order to shoot in a vertical orientation, again, you'll need some kind of a device that's meant to hold the camera in a vertical orientation while the tripod's straight up and down so that you can rotate over the optical axis at the same time. And also, use the manual settings or a panorama mode to keep the exposure consistent for each frame. And use the panorama mode if your camera has one. The neatest panorama mode Canon uses and some other manufacturers is they take the original shot and move it over to the left as soon as you snap it and reduce its transparency by 50%. So then you rotate to the next place that you're going to shoot. You can see where the overlap is and you can register everything precisely. So even if you're hand holding the camera, you'll get a perfect stitch.